too, and anybody else, I'll send it to you guys as a YouTube link. But you guys have YouTube accounts, don't you?
Yeah.
I do. I have a YouTube account. I use it all the time. And it tells me how many times people view my video. Some not so good. All right. Have you started? Good. Number 1. Do we need to go over it? If the power comes out to be a squared, that means it's a quadratic. Okay? All right. 2 and 3. First of all, y-intercept is an ordered pair. And some of you gave me the wildest answers. So like my number 2, as it stands, you know the axis of symmetry is x equals h. So this value right here, in this case it would be a -1. So we know the axis of symmetry, which you have to graph, right? That also tells us what our vertex, because we know our vertex is hk, and that makes it hk. Out to lunch. In this case, it would be -1, -4. Then the third thing that I asked you was the y-intercept, which is the ordered pair 0c. This c is not that number. Isn't that k? So it's not c. But to find it, you take your original equation in place of the x, we're going to put a 0. Because if you notice the ordered pair, the x is 0. So here we're going to have 1 squared times 2, so we have 2 minus 4. So y is a -2, so our ordered pair would be 0, -2. And if you look at your graph that you graphed, I bet you'll notice that it went through the point 0, -2. Things like that. We have to, and there were a lot of points. There's like 8 points on each one of the graphs. All right. Are we done with the graphs? 4 and 5. How do you tell whether it's minimum or maximum?
It's what?
Maximum goes like this. But you can tell from the graph. You don't have to graph it. If a is less than 0, we have a maximum. Now, when they ask for the maximum value, they're basically asking for the vertex. So to find the vertex, you have to go through your axis of symmetry. And then you have to find the vertex. Now, if you missed this one, you might want to jot yourself some notes so that you can use this as a study guide for the next time. Because this value here is basically what they want. But to me, you can give it to me in the ordered pair, and that would be fine. So on number 4, we have y equals x squared plus x minus 12. We know the axis of symmetry is a -1/2, so we know it's at a -1/2. Then we have to put this value back in here, which is a -1/2 squared plus 1/2 minus 12. Well, 1/2 squared is a quarter.
Miss J, will it be -1/2?
It would be. So if I just deal with these two pieces, that would be a -1/4. So a -1/4 minus 12 would make my ordered pair a -12 1/4, or -49/4. But this is the value, the minimum and maximum value, and for this one it would be a minimum. Questions? All right, number 6. Do we need to do 6?
I have a question.
Yeah.
How do you find the K?
Which one are we on? We're on 6?
Yeah.
Okay. And we know we want it to write in vertex form. Okay, vertex form, right? The vertex. Didn't we use this formula to find the axis of symmetry? Isn't that what we used before? So to find that vertex, I take my axis of symmetry and put it back in the original equation. That's how I find my K. You can't, well, you can't tell it from looking at it. We do know that this is going to be 2. Because this value and this A are exactly the same. So now we gotta find the axis of symmetry. X is equal to a -8 over 2 times A. So X is equal to -2. So we know here we're going to have X plus 2 because of that negative sign. Then to find our vertex, we take our -2 and we substitute it in here, so we have 2 times a -2 squared plus 8 times a -2. That would be 4, so this would be 8 minus 16 minus 3. That would be a -8 minus 3, so it's a -11. And again, guys, you have to realize that this means the same thing as this guy. This vertex and that vertex are the same. We use one when we have it standard form, one when we have to use a vertex form. All right, does that pretty much take care of 6 and 7?
Well, on 7, my vertex was off, so my thing was off. And
And I can tell you why. If you look at number on, 7. When you did your axis of symmetry, right?
yeah,
So we have a -2 over 2 times a -1, right? So you got x equals 1.
yeah.
Then when I substitute to find the y, I have a -1 times 1 squared. This negative is not being squared.
Mm.
So this is a -1 plus 2 plus 2.
Okay.
And again, if you square that -1, you got a 5. And see, it is not squared. It is after the squaring happens. Now, on number 8, when we square a binomial, how many terms do we get? 3.
3.
So, if you have on number 8, if you take this and square it, you should get 3 terms. And if several of you look at your homework, you'll find you only had 2. So, if I square this, it's basically I'm taking x minus 2 times x minus 2. First term would be x squared, outside terms 82x, inside 82x, and then plus 4. Then we have to deal with the minus. And then get our like terms together.
Okay, why wouldn't it be like x minus 2 and then x plus 2?
If you, when it's a quantity squared, it's the 2 quantities the same.
Okay. I was just confused because I thought like 2 negatives make a positive. So that's...
But when they give you a quantity squared, they mean this times this. The exact same thing times
Okay.
itself.
Okay.
All right, basically the same thing on 9. And if you look at your work, you just didn't square your trinomials. All right, of the 8 factoring problems, 14 and 15 were the biggest issues. On 14, when you have that fraction out in front, you should clear it. So in other words, if I factor out 1/4, what's that number going to be?
4.
1/4 times what number will equal 4? If I take 4 times 1/4, that's 1. 16. Once you get into this It's very simple because this is difference of 2 squared, which is just like 17, the difference of 2 squareds. We have two quantities. The signs are opposite, so the middle term drops out. Now, if you would have left it, I would accept this. I won't the next time. Because usually if we have a fraction out, we'd like to clear it. Yes?
For that one, I multiplied by 4, and then I,
Yes, that's okay, but then you lost the 4.
okay.
You gotta keep the 4. And then on 15, it was not to be a trick question, but several of you took it as a trick question. First of all, always look, do you have a GCF? Yes, so you factor out. And that plus sign screwed it up big time, because there are no factors of 10 that add to 3. You're done. It cannot factor any further. Now, if this would have been a minus, that would have been entirely different.
So if it could have been factored, then
Then you would have. If it would have ended up, if it would have been that one, then you'd have had x plus 5, x minus 2. But again, you always check the GCF. All right. Are we good with the factoring side? Now, these last 3 problems, we're using your calculator, except for 18. 18, you factored out an x, and then what do? Set each piece equal to 0. And I have 2 answers. You could have put it in your calculator. It would have told you the same thing, that it crossed in 2 places, 0 and 6. Now, on 19, eventually you were going to be asked to do these without a calculator. At 20, you just put it in your calculator and either use the table or the calculate one. What's your first step on this guy? Divide by 4. How do you get rid of something squared?
2 square root.
So if I take the square root of this side, I get x minus 2. If I take the square root of this side, I get a plus or minus, because we always have 2 answers. And then what's the square root of 8?
2 square root is 2.
Then I'd add a positive 2. Technically, that was the exact answer. You could have gone through the calculator and got the 2 answers. Questions? Make sure you count to see if I did it right, and stop the video.